All right, hello and welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. Welcome back to the chart stream. Welcome back to the evening streams, to be fair, probably calls as well, because most of the time it is in the evening where I stream this. But regardless, wherever you are, welcome to stream. Thank you for joining in the intro. Today's gonna be an interesting one. We've got quite a bit to talk about. Quite a lot's happened. So not exactly different from what I said. My expectation is a certain price, pretty much across the board. Expecting a certain move. Did I expect this massive move down? Not as much as not as much as they move back upwards, but I'm still in hopes that we move back upwards. Again, it's more of a thing where it's a trade from the move upwards rather than to a move upwards. But hopefully you're all doing well. Let me start timer. Nonetheless, I'm obviously on Binance Square and YouTube, so everyone on Binance Square, hello to you. And good news, I'm obviously working on the quiz. If you guys, any of you who are in the stream, have watched our quiz before, I am still working on pushing the quiz over to Binance Square, which would be very, very cool. And I've actually had the green light to do so, so that is going to be very cool. Hopefully very soon, by at least next Wednesday or next stream anyway, you guys should be able to play the quiz, which would be very, very cool. Anyways, I'm going to do this quite quickly this stream. I'm tired and I've got some things to work on, so I'm just going to give a nice quick update over what we've talked about since last stream to this stream. Mostly doom and gloom, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not doom and gloom, I'm not saying it's over, but I'm just gonna go up until, you know, syrup. And if I manage to stop speaking before 1 hour, I'll just end the stream short. So regardless, going on to liquidations. So we currently have around 416 total 24-hour liquidations. Again, that is probably, I expect that to be a little bit more over the whole move we've had, basically. But about $267 million in short liquidations. Obviously, we've had a tiny bit of a move upwards, and obviously 149 in longer liquidations. Going to CoinMarketCap, we can see I actually didn't have the market calendar, the market calendar up, so I forgot to bring it up. But I think majority, again, the things going on with Greenland, I don't think it helps. And you know, it's every time Trump speaks in relation to a negative outcome of of Greenland and whatnot, the market dumps. You know, so there's definitely a lot of uncertainty in terms of the geopolitical scenario right now. In terms of, are they going to do this peacefully? I'm not saying they're going to start throwing bombs at each other, but are they going to be doing this peacefully, or are they going to come to a deal? What are they actually going to do? What's the outcome of this sort of thing? So I can understand the uncertainty from that regard. And again, uncertainty normally brings fear rather than fear than something valuable beginning with an F. I can't think of a word. But we can see we're 89.1 right now, 0.24% the 1 hour. Again, it only happened 4 minutes ago. 0.83% up 24 hour. Again, tiny bit of move up, but 6.77% down on the 7 day, which is not very nice. Ethereum 2934, broken below the $3,000 mark, down 10.5% on the 7 day. Solana 127, about nearly 10% as well, down on the 7 day. Going to syrup as well, we can see we have 34 cent, which is the only coin which has actually gone up. The coin I want to go down the most has actually got the only one going up. Obviously, Crow as well is another one I want to go up and has actually gone down. We can see 0.91. My main target was about 0.095. We can see we're 0.091. So we'll see, you know, where exactly we hit to in this regard. So again, up until a point in which we actually hit actual support. Again, it's not a be all end all for Crow, but again, Crow, out of everything I talk about, is the naffest one to actually look at. Anyone winning over the last 24 hours, a tiny bit, a decent amount of win, to be fair. What about 7 day? Some winning across the 7 day, but you know, apart from it's not awful, but again, we're very close to stable coins. Only about 15 coins above stable coins, or 14 I should say, coins above stable coins. Actually, things which have gone up, because again, stable coins are kind of the wall in which you actually don't move, because again, moving a stable coin doesn't really make too much sense with it. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Let's get straight to the chart. So I'm going to keep this quite I'm going to obviously unhide my TA, and it's going to be messy, but you know what, I should go through this and delete. I should just delete everything, really. You know what, let me go. Okay, this is going to be bad, because I'm not supposed to be doing this, because, you know, this is just against my own rules. But I'm just going to draw out the very select few things I had drawn out originally, and kind of just talk about this. So let me just draw this again. I'm going to draw this out. I don't want this one. I want the other one. There we go. So this, I'm going to talk about this. Okay, so what we were talking about was up here at, again, obviously Monday-ish. We're talking about, okay, cool, we've had a move down. We've printed past a low on the 4 hour anyway. And at some point, I'm going to expect it to move back upwards towards 95. And once I see that 95 move upwards, then I want it to go towards lows, maybe back towards, I think it was somewhere within here at 91. And obviously, we have some support at 88 with this gap. So instead of seeing that high first, we've come down towards the lows. And we've continued downwards. Now, again, same concept. And this is even stronger for a strong idea. Because, again, we didn't really have a daily print lower than a low. So we didn't have that daily pressure. Is that rain? I heard a lot of noise outside. I don't know if it's rain or cars. So we had a lot of pressure on the 4 hour after printing past lows. Like, okay, cool. We're starting to change downwards. We're starting to print downwards. This is pretty big in terms of that regard. But on the daily, we didn't have that. But now we do have it on the daily. So I can talk with even more potential that we're going to have this. Big issue here is going to be this printed through gap here. This is probably going to be the most important area to look at in terms of a retracement if we were to have one. Obviously not financial advice. Again, I always say not financial advice, but instead of seeing the move upwards, we've seen a continuation down, which is perfectly fine. Because again, I do this quite often when I look at these charts. It's we continue to trail the low. In this case, if we're looking for a retracement anyway, we'll continue to trail the low until we start to reverse. And what that determination is if we see that on lower time frames, we actually see structural change. And we didn't actually see that on last stream. Last stream was pretty much we pretty much just saw the dump. So we hadn't had any structure to suggest we were going upwards yet. The best thing I could do last stream was to draw out the retracement and say, okay, cool. If we are going to have a retracement, I do expect it to go upwards towards, 94, 93k, whatever it's going to be. And I do expect it to go down towards some of these lower ends. I think I said somewhere in that 99k. Obviously, we had this main gap we've seen before, about 88k, 89.5 and whatnot. So I was expecting this area as well. Obviously, continuing downwards, we didn't quite see that retracement on any of the lower time frames to start to reverse back upwards and see 93k. So we didn't do that, so we continued downwards, which is perfectly fine. Obviously, I know it's a pain in the ass. If you're someone who really wants things to go upwards, it's a pain in the ass. But we've obviously seen that move downwards. But this is giving us more strength on the higher time frames that we could potentially see a retracement upwards, because we've seen a high, a low, a higher high, and obviously we've now come to a weekly resistance here, and we've actually printed through this low. I've obviously underestimated the major usage of this resistance, obviously continuing downwards regardless, and seeing this low. So whatever, we've seen that low now. So this is now this is now concerning the daily now. It's not just the 4 hour. We're now concerned on the daily time frame that we are going to see that retracement. Obviously, we can still continue to trail this low, because if you really look at it, we haven't broken anything just yet. We haven't had a main structure. We have had a low area over here. We've had a main low, a small high, and we've had a massive wick downwards below this low, coming past basically just that low, realistically. We haven't printed through this bounce price range, and we've seen this massive wick, a tiny body, and a retracement. This is going to be a rejection block here. Just to show you guys, this is going to be a rejection block here. We are still in this bounce price range. So this is technically support. Bounce price range is still being used as support, as we can see quite nicely with this here. We haven't printed through it yet, so that doesn't necessarily mean we've reversed it to resistance. So we're still in support, and we've done a failed low here in terms of we've done a failed move lower, and we've come back upwards. So if we go to lower time frames, we can look, structurally, like we'll see, okay, we should see a low, a high. We've seen this low here, but if we pay attention to what we have on the higher time frames, we could potentially see that reversal potential. If we look for a bounce price range, for example, somewhere where we are right now, as like I said, as an example, if I just made this green. So, not saying we are not going to say we do it right now, because again, I'm just going to draw out this entire inverted gap. I'm just going to draw the whole thing. So we can see this sits round about where we are in this midpoint here. So, the idea that if we were to see retracement, and we can see we've failed to do so on this time frame, where if we try and use the context of the higher time frame on the lower time frame, and that we have this massive rejection block on the 4 hour here, which support is obviously that midpoint here, then we could potentially see where we've come from. Not only do we have this inverted gap, where we could potentially see that support, because this is a very bad sign for downtrend. We've had a massive gap and we've printed through it here. So this is a pretty strong strong thing here. So not only is this a gap, but this is also going to be a order block here actually, because we have this last down close candle coming past a old low, which is obviously a point of interest, and we've printed above it here with this up close, these up close moves. So this is actually also this singular candle, if I could get the highlight of this, this is also a order block. I'm going to call this red for now. So we've actually got the gap and the order block sitting the midpoint there, 88. We've also got the rejection block midpoint, which is about 88.7, and we've got this the midpoint of the rejection block and the bounce price range previously is also at 88.7. So we've actually got a lot sitting within these two lines. If I re-highlight these two lines here, we've got a lot sitting overlapping each other as confluence to suggest as support. Not saying, I'm not guaranteeing anything, again, not financial advice, but if anywhere was to be a sign of starting to reverse or break the smooth trend downwards that we have, to break us stopping going downwards, it would be now probably, because obviously we can see on the 1 hour as well, we've had these lows, we had the most recent low here, we had this high, we had this fail move here, we printed high, we did obviously came down one more time, but you can see we've come back upwards, and we're kind of just about teetering off this. But again, like I said, if we focus really where structure is on the higher time frame, we can see that main move downwards for a high here, for a high round about here, and then we can see we've come down and failed to print, and now we're kind of sitting in this area. So if we could start to use this as support and start to print past 90,500, it could be a better sign for us that we could see a bit higher towards up here. But that's obviously the criteria to suggest, because again, this whole process has 3 steps. It's more of the step being producing that high, coming down to the low. It's then reversing to go back upwards, and it's then finding that lower high to then come back downwards. That's kind of the steps we have. So we're currently in this step where we're just waiting to see when we're going to have that reversal point to then watch for that move upwards. Again, the easiest way to trade for trading this is definitely going to be waiting for that move for the retracement, rather than gambling on if we've seen the low here. You know what I mean? Obviously, we can go off previous price action. So, for example, we had this bounce price range. We had some previous supports over here, which we could use. The first initial highest support we had was this area here. It was this. It was these two candles here. It was this set of down close before the continuation back upwards. Which in this result moved was lower than this low here, which is the important part. Actually, I think it's more of this white one, because we can see this is what moved us past the high, which formed a resistance, and then we obviously reversed it here with this pump upwards. So if we actually print that out, we can see was mainly where we saw this stopping point around about here. And again, it was the highest support point of anything, which is interesting. I see the 1, 2, 3 there. But anyway, obviously continuing back downwards, we know we have a lot of support here. So if it wasn't this first step, I don't think we had much in this TA or in this price action apart from that bounce price range. So this is kind of the main support point, which was the one which we've used before, and it's probably the strongest because this is a higher time frame area than we had, obviously apart from about 92k, which is a lot higher up. But like I said, now that we have the daily on board in terms of a print below a low, where we could potentially see a lower high, which obviously could result us in coming to about 92.5. We obviously got the 4 hour, because again we've mainly printed through a major low here, and obviously we've got could have a good chance of finding a major support point where we are right now. It's not guaranteed. Again, we'd have to wait for it to print at least past 90,600 to actually start to have that trend back upwards. We will see probably somewhat of resistance in 92k. This will be something here, not a complete stopping point, but something to pay attention to. But I do think I could be interested to see if we could potentially get towards this major gap, the inverted gap here on the daily, towards starting at about 92.5. That would be my interesting thing to do. Again, filling most of this. If we draw the void out, which is these two highs here, actually I believe it's the candle bodies actually, which we draw. You can see that's a very close thing. You can see if we do the lows here, this whole move downwards for this void, we can see that low sits exactly where that starting point is at 92.592. So we do have this liquidity void here, which again we're potentially wanting to get up into, obviously not financial advice, which I think could be quite strong to do. So obviously we'll see how it goes. But I am still expecting that move back upwards. Ethereum. I am going to change chart again. I'll probably delete all these charts just to keep it cleaner. I'm just going to I'm not gonna look at the old charts again because I'm just gonna draw it fresh quickly off this. Actually, I want to see what support we had. We had some supports over here. I think on some lower time frames, but I'm just gonna draw them out quickly. I think maybe on the 4-hour, I believe there's somewhat of support. I think it was somewhere back here. We had this down move, which then resulted in a print higher to it, and then we kind of used this area for a bit here. I think this was our main support area here. We have this massive down close, which results in us coming past this low, and then we actually have a point going back on. So obviously back here we have on, I believe maybe a higher time frame or a lower time frame, we have some support back here, mainly being this kind of bounce price range. If I draw this out quickly, a bounce price range around about here, which if we can see, we kind of came into this low point and then start to pump back upwards coming from this support. So coming from a point of interest for this candle here, we then printed higher past this last down close before the swing upwards, and then we can see we came back down into mainly using the gap of this area on the 4-hour, but this is obviously a stronger area of support here for this move. Either way, using the midpoint of here quite nicely. So we do have a form of support here on the daily here. I'm going to draw the same thing out as we did on Bitcoin, where we go from the high to the low here, looking at this main move. Now, what do we have? Well, we have this inverted gap here, which is a bit higher than we have on Bitcoin, about 3,174. The main gap, which I drew out on the last stream, was this 3,201 here. Or this, 3,250, this last move here, coming into it. The streaming was about here, obviously looking to see, okay, well, this might not be the exact reversal point, but you can see on the 4-hour we've printed past this 3,250 point on Friday, forming an actual downtrend now, and then we can see, we did this, but mainly now the interest is on the daily, where we can see we've printed through that low with this major move here, equilibrium roundabout, starting from this 0.5. I think the stronger area for this is definitely going to be looking at this major gap here, but higher up is definitely this previous inverted gap, so we could potentially see something like that. Same story here on the 4-hour. We've come to a point of support. On Bitcoin, it was the bounce price range. What we have on Ethereum now, we have this gap, and we have this major order block here with the midpoint around about 2,867. So we can see that usage here, and we have this massive wick back upwards of a smaller body. So this is going to be a rejection block, which we can see if we draw this out. We are using that midpoint quite nicely. So going back down to the 1-hour, similar to how we did on Bitcoin, we can see the same story here. This is actually also a gap alongside this being a order block, which if we go upwards, we can see would be around about there. But you can see the gap is also this is also the gap which we're kind of focusing on here, which is kind of like the bounce price range here. But we could probably draw it from here as the proper bounce price range. You can see we're sitting in this area. We haven't printed past this low. We're still in this gap. We're still doing well, but we are obviously coming downwards a tiny bit. So, somewhere within this gap is what I would probably expect. And obviously the rejection block midpoint being at 2,935. So we're sitting at somewhat of support. Again, we could have a, we have this move where we could have, a failed swing lower before we go back upwards, aiming for major highs at 3,069 relative to this scope. If we go back to the 4-hour, we can see this is, again, same thing we did with Bitcoin, where we're really focusing on for our major structure in terms of the wider time frame for the market, which for me is going to be this rejection block, fail to print past some of these lows here. You can see, obviously, we had these lows. We actually failed to print past this. This is here as well. This is technically a fail to print lower than this low. So we had this kind of major low. We kind of like came upwards one more time, failed to print, came upwards to a gap. Same thing we're doing on Bitcoin here, where I said, even though this is, I don't think this is going to be, we do have gaps above us. I think it was like 91k or 91.5. We'll probably see somewhat of resistance there, but I don't think it's going to be permanently stopping us. I think this is a fast-tracked version of that for Ethereum, where we've already used the gap above us. Same thing here. It's only stopping us from going upwards and continuing to go upwards. We then come back down for this massive swing lower, not printing again, massive fail swing here. So we have this kind of major low now, which comes past this low and not printing past it. And now obviously we've come down one more time. So if we look at this major this major time frame as comparison to the 1-hour and the 15 minutes, this is obviously a good sign for us slowing down on the move down, because again, this makes sense. This is in context to the market as well, because we've actually come into an area of support, a major area of support. So it makes sense if now would be a time to stop going down in kind of relation to what we've done so far. We've also formed this rejection block, like I said, this massive wick with this smaller body here coming into obviously support. Again, again, the idea of a rejection block. We've come to an area expecting to print lower and continue lower, and we've rejected from this area, gone upwards really high, and printed positively with a smaller body, or just a bigger wick is normally what it is. The wick is where you use, and this is obviously the rejection being we've come down and come right back upwards. This is the rejection. So using this in context, like I said, with some lower time frames, we could potentially, in the context of what we're doing, see a move, something, a move similar to this, where we've kind of seen this head and shoulders, I suppose. Obviously, we haven't done that yet. We haven't printed. Again, it's not financial advice. But if we can continue to stay printing above 2914. Now, this is also a rejection block here. A down move, expecting to print lower. Obviously, not in case we are. We've printed above the midpoint of the rejection block. We formed a tiny body with a massive wick downwards. So this is also a 1 hour rejection block here, which I'll draw in blue. So we can see we've formed this. We've wicked into that midpoint there as well, and you can see we're starting to kind of use this area. If we go to like the 15-minute, you can see this is actually now more of an order block if we were to zoom this in a bit more, but rejection block nonetheless. We form it, come upwards, we've used it. You can see we've kind of taken this high, failed to print though, coming down one more time, kind of potentially holding on to a bit of a higher print here as we're continuing. So we could potentially see somewhat of a reversal. We haven't done anything just yet, but I think if we could start to see us, because in all this move downwards, all these highs have not been printed past. So we're doing fine in structure, and in terms of the last high we have, it's kind of that high, I would say. So if we could start to see us, push upwards in this move, we're getting very close to the point in which we want to print above this high and use this area as support. So we could potentially see that on the 50-minute. If we continue to do so and pass this on to the higher time frames, we could expect to see a stopping point in this massive move down we've had on everything in the market, to be fair, and potentially go upwards towards some of these resistance points at 3175, wherever it's going to be exactly. So that's what I could expect. Again, we could still expect to see somewhat resistance in this whole gap which formed on the way downwards. The new one on the daily time frame. Anything above the equilibrium is really where I want to focus on, which is going to be 3111. So we could probably see somewhat resistance in this area at 3150. We did still see resistance in this area. That's not out of the ordinary. Well, that's not crazy to say. Even though they're not in the prime position, there's still somewhat of an area to focus on. So same thing with this here at 3150. Do I think it's the max high we could see? It's potential for it. There's full-on potential for it. But I do want to see us come into this inverted gap starting at 3172. It's my personal area I want to see. I could be wrong, not financial advice, but that's kind of where I want to focus on for Ethereum. Going to Solana. Again, I'm going to do a new chart here, and I'm just going to do it fresh, just kind of freestyled, because I don't want to keep on looking at the same chart, because it's getting a bit messy. So let's go to the daily here. So again, daily, same story, printed past the major low. We are focusing on that down move to look higher. We do have a gap. We don't have any inverted gap or anything in particular. We technically do have this area, this small gap, which we used once, and we've obviously printed through. So there is that as potential there, which I can draw out. But the main is going to be within this area at, at least starting at 138. Again, this might not be the stopping point. If we look at it, though, we haven't had a fail swing with this move. We've had a low, a high, or not really a high here, to be fair, but we've had a down move, which has resulted in a low, a move higher into a gap. We haven't done a fail swing. We've done a high. We have done a high, but it's not a fail swing. I'm still going to draw it as a rejection block because we have come past. We have come past these two lows here. Okay, so this still has potential to be a rejection block. I'm going to draw it out anyway to be used. We had these two lows. We wicked past them here and pretty high. This is more of a... This is actually kind of just an order block on the 1 hour here. This is kind of just an order block. So we have had kind of a fail to move lower scenario where we have printed a new high on the 1 hour. So we are kind of going upwards a bit. Again, main thing being we haven't printed past the low of this support at 125. So there is potential to continue to use this area as somewhat of a support point. You see with this main gap, this first one here, we can see we have printed through it. Let me show you. Let me draw it out. If I get the green. There we go. So you can see this is interesting here. So we have this gap here, which we kind of started to use. We're kind of stuck in this range here. You can see kind of a power of 3 here where we've had this range, we've wicked past it and then dumped because of this. We can see we've used gaps on the way downwards, which I'll draw here. We can see this main gap is, or what could be support. We've printed through it here. This is concerning. This is what I say when we haven't printed through it, and that's the kind of main criteria, because you can see once we've done this, we've printed through this gap. This is now resistance. So you can see we re-enter back into this gap at around about that midpoint, but mainly this gap on the way downwards. You can see we've used that resistance here. So not only do we have this gap in yellow, we have the main gap which we've just printed past, which is now resistance. So we've entered back into this area and found resistance and started to come down a bit. Obviously not fully gone down, we're still kind of coming up one more time, but it's obviously not a great sign to see that. So if we look on some lower time frames here, we can kind of see what could potentially be somewhat resistance. We can have a kind of last up close before the down move here, which gets printed through, which comes into this gap. So I'm going to draw out this kind of last candle here. You can see we've if I do a different color here, let's go white. You can see we've printed this, and you can see we kind of come down. We are kind of using that midpoint here. We've kind of formed this area. It's probably easy to look at this on the 5 minute here. Here we go. This is kind of what it is here. So we have these kind of last up close before this down move, which prints through it. You can see we're using that resistance at this midpoint here. But any of these are really going to be, these are all going to be kind of propulsion blocks. So this last move, which gets printed through, which is probably not this candle, this white one, this other candle, we can move this along and use this as a propulsion block here. So if we now zoom out a bit more, we can see this is the last candle before it gets printed through. We're also in this gap here. So as long as we don't print through this wick here at 12833, we are going to be using this small gap which we formed, and we have come wicked into this singular candle. If I draw it properly, this is also an order block. So we kind of have confluence to kind of find resistance in this area. So if we can continue to print in this gap and not print through 128 and reject off it and continue downwards, this is a kind of a good sign to suggest we could continue lower for Solana. But also all of that, you know, all those words just to say that we could potentially see a continued use of resistance on the 1 hour and continue back downwards. So that's kind of mainly what I'm focusing on here. So even though we have a rejection block, we haven't had that major swing. You know, we haven't had a failed swing lower, because that's really where the confidence comes from, which is, you know, we do have that major move downwards, which results in a positively printing body. But we haven't had that wick lower, which fails to print. So we haven't had a failed swing lower where we've kind of come past the low, but not printed. It's still technically a rejection block, but it's not going to have the oomph, if you will, of as does the other ones. But if we really look at, obviously we have this gap, but we do have the inverted gap, which we were talking about with Ethereum as well, which is this here, where we're still printing above that low at 127. So there's still potential of support. There's still potential of support, but it's not as positive as Ethereum and Bitcoin. But obviously, if everything moves in unison, I'm still going to be saying the same thing with Solana, which is, you know, I would want to expect to see it retrace higher to 137 to see a bit of resistance for a lower high. Difference also being with Solana is we never actually saw that print higher. You know, we did come upwards, and technically we did see a high, a low, a high print. So technically we are in an uptrend, but we didn't see a major print past highs. So, you know, we are, regardless of what we did, you know, we've come past this low. We've printed a lot lower than we were at, you know, Friday or Thursday the 8th, and we've printed lower. So I would want to expect to see a retracement higher before we continue back downwards, but you know, it's not financial advice. You know, that's all I'll say. But we'll see how it goes. So in terms of my positivity, I'm least positive on Solana out of all three, in terms of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. But it's still within the realm of potential as is Bitcoin and Ethereum. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But again, kind of parroting what I said on last stream, which was I just want to see it have this small retracement, because we have broken out of, on the 4 hour, at the time it was only the 4 hour, we had broken out of the structure on the way upwards and we were starting to go downwards. So on the 4 hour, I definitely wanted to see it, you know, have that retracement and go higher. We continue to do that on the daily as well. So again, the main message of last stream was to see that move to 192, 93k, wherever it was. We did continue to go lower, but it's giving more potential or even more potential to have that move, like I talked about on last stream, to those 93, 92k on Bitcoin, 3175 on Ethereum and whatnot, because of the fact we have this print lower on the daily, which could allow us to retrace to have a higher low. It's the same, it's this move really. It's this is what we kind of have right now. So the idea, if a lot of you have done, somewhat, not surface level TA, but the TA, if you look up chart patterns, you always see the head and shoulders. Same concept where we have this move. We've printed lower. This is now failing to continue to go higher. We want to see it go down. We're going to see somewhat of resistance in this down move, which allows us to stop and then continue lower. That's all we're talking about in all this on the daily, is that sort of concept. So kind of that's what I'm focusing on, if that makes sense. So yeah. We'll see how it goes for Solana. I do want to see potential positivity. And like I said, we're still in this rejection block. We still haven't printed past the low. We're still in this inverted gap. We haven't printed past the low. So even though we might see somewhat resistance, which might allow us to go down one more time towards 127, I don't think it's going to stop us in any means. I really don't think it's going to stop us. But obviously, we'll see how it goes. But we're still doing fine. I think we're still doing fine across the board. And I'm still expecting that higher time frame move towards highs across the board. Syrup, quick update on Syrup here. So again, we've obviously talked about it coming to the midpoint of this area of resistance. We've talked about it, going from a high to a low to do a lower high, which we've done already here. This is the same process I explained with Bitcoin, where we have the move high to low, we expect for the reversal, and then we go to that lower high, which is the main thing I've been aiming for on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and then we continue, and we want to aim for that low to do a new low. That's the process of a downtrend. I mean, it's just downtrend. At the end of the day, it's just a down move or an up move. That's all this is, which I'm talking about here. So it's the same concept of having that high to a low, to move higher for a lower high, and then do a lower low. And we want this to happen. We want it to come towards, 21.5. We're very close to it. We can do it once we come past it. We want this to happen. So to zoom in a bit more on the 4 hour, we're doing very, very well. We had a balanced price range over here. We printed above it. We did technically see a bit of support, but again, we came to our major resistance point, and it allowed us to have a nice expansion downwards and print through it and start to use this area of resistance one more time. You can see this midpoint being used quite nicely here, and then eventually expanding lower, officially printing through some major lows here and coming back upwards to find a previous gap. We have very, very nice structure now. We have very nice structure on Syrup. We're doing very well in terms of this down move. So I can still expect this to happen. I think, when we have these down moves from high moves, we just have to look back and see where the major points are. So for example, these major points, we came past them, we then came upwards, again finding resistance. These have now formed major points alongside these. So if we draw all these out, we have the low here, we have some lows here, we have these lows. So we've come past these major areas, come to a new checkpoint, if you will, and then go back upwards. Same story here, we have a low, we have this gap over here as well. So drawing kind of all this out with this low here and this gap, the next target's going to be towards in this area, 29.7. I could expect a little bit of a retracement for a lower high. It's just us doing a downtrend. That's it. So it's just looking at all these targets on the way downwards. We might have some support here. We have some lows here. We have a low here. So we're going to be targeting all these areas on the way downwards. That's how this works. We're going to be targeting different areas as we move downwards to find these lower lows and then do lower highs. And, continue this trend, basically, continue that movement all the way up until we hit our major point of interest, which in this case is going to be around about 21.5, is what I'm thinking. 21.5 is really where I want to focus on for Syrup. So that's what we're really going to do. That's all I've got really to say about Syrup. It's quite a cut and dry thing. Obviously, it's not financial advice, as I always like to say on most of my charts. But yeah, other than that, moving along to Crow. Now, Crow's not a very good one. Crow's the naffest one. Now, of all the ones I look at, I'd never like looking at Crow because it never plays ball, So my target was, my initial main target was going to be about 9.6 cent, 9.4 cent in this gap. The only support we have left is going to be this rejection block. Now, what I will say about this is, in terms of a major high, we never really had major high. We had high, we had a low, we had a high, we had a low, and a high, and then we broke down. And then we had a high, and then we failed to swing lower, and then we printed upwards. So we had this last high, we did print through quite strong. We had a last high here, we printed through quite strongly. Either way, regardless of what I said, we have a high, we have a low, we have a lower high here, and we've printed through the low. So we are we've technically reversed this with this move. You know, we have come downwards. So that is not a very positive sign on this time, because again, we spent so long sitting here in range bound that it allowed us to have that sort of trend where we kind of did this on the daily, because it took us this long to do this. We have now printed lower past the major low here, and it might mean we might not even go up from here, which is not a very good sign. But regardless, what I will talk about is previous trend. I do want to see some support here. We haven't printed past the low. We whipped past the low here. We had the move upwards. This is good. Out of everything, this was really, really good. We then start to come downwards. This wasn't very good, this move, and then we've actually done past major low here, and it's not looking good. So we have seen a bit of support here. I am going to see to reverse this, because we didn't really see. We did see that equilibrium there for that move, even though this was an uptrend. So drawing this out, we can see anything above 9.7 cent. So somewhere within this gap at about 10 cent, it could be a good target if we are going to continue to see this sort of move. Then somewhere in that regard is what I'll say. Again, it can be as low as 9.73 cents, but somewhere in this gap is what I'd say. But technically in this retracement, we didn't see, we weren't going to be looking at that break. But again, this is the most recent high before the move down, which caused us to have a downtrend. This is not great. Printing flat past that low. If we didn't do this and start to go back upwards, it would have been perfectly fine, because we started that move upwards. This was the start of us potentially moving upwards, printing past these major highs here, especially this one, because again, we had that low. We had this whatever malarkey. We then came down for that print. We then came upwards. We then swung past this, failed to print, and then came upwards. This was us starting a bit of an uptrend here. This was great. We then came down and then hovered and then printed. And this is the bad sign. This 98, this is a bad sign, because we've had this low, we've had this high, we've printed through it. This is now not great. So I could draw it from here, and that's what I might do as a leniency. We have about 10 cents. 10 cents is kind of the minimum of this wider range. If we look from around about 4 cents, it's about 9.7. So somewhere within this regard is what I could kind of pay attention to, in my opinion, to find a resistance. Again, 9.7 to 10 cent. This gap here, especially at 10 cents, is really where I want to focus on, because again, not only do we have this gap, but we have previous price action behind it, which we could kind of focus on. So for example, we have this kind of down move, the last down close, which gets printed through before a smaller move upwards. We can see we had what would have been a support point here, which you can see we did use. We kind of came back into it, use it support, and then we've printed through it. So this is now a breaker block. So we have a breaker block on top of this gap, which starts at about 9.99 cents, so 10 cent pretty much on the nose here. So again, we'd have a bit of confidence in this area for this gap and that breaker block here. So if we draw this out, you can see these two areas here are really where it's at. So we do have that to pay attention to. And yeah, that's kind of it really on the topic of Crow, because there's not really much for me to talk about, and I don't like Crow. I don't like looking at Crow and talking about it, but we have seen somewhat of potential support in this area. On the 4 hour, this is actually a very what could be a strong order block. This is actually a rejection block on the daily time frame, but we can see we have this down move. This was the swing on the daily, which allowed us to pump. So we had this kind of down move past this major low here with a wick, not printing past it. Very good bonus there. 2 down close, which resulted in a massive move upwards. These 2 candles can be very strong for a order block. As we can see, we've come into it, comes to that midpoint very nicely as a support point here, and we're kind of hovering. We've not stopped or anything, we're kind of hovering. Same thing with Solana here. We do have a very similar kind of process where we have seen a major move down to form what could be a rejection block, but it hasn't had a wick past the major low here. So that is something to maybe pay attention to in terms of not having that main structure, but this technically still can be a rejection block. So same concept. I'm going to draw it out here. We can see we're still sitting quite nicely at that midpoint. Unlike Solana, we are sitting quite well at this midpoint. We do have this, again, inverted gap here, which we're kind of still in, but mainly having that rejection block on the 4 hour. We can see we've come upwards, printing past this whole thing here. This is also an order block here. Same thing I've said on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. We've come down again at this midpoint quite nicely, but the main thing for this trend, I think, is going to be the fact that we've kind of had this down move, a low, fail swing, print higher, and we're coming down. So we could be starting a bit of a move back upwards. You know what I mean? We had this wick upwards, which I'm going to look at the prints here because that's what really matters on a trend. These are the kind of prints we've had. We've printed higher. this is what we've done. So we've had this down move, and then we've hit a point of support, and then we've kind of wicked past some of this previous stuff here. But the main thing being this area here, this print past this high here, is really what is the main thing to focus on. We've had a big pump back upwards from support and had a retracement. This pump has allowed us to form a support point, which is this rejection block, as you can see we are using currently. If we continue to use not financial advice, we could potentially start to see a bit of reversals. This because this whole scenario which we've talked about across the board can allow us to get up towards these 10-cent marks for Crow. Obviously the 134 for Solana, 3175 for Ethereum, 93, 92 and a half, whatever it was for Bitcoin. These are these are kind of the areas, the targets, the higher areas to really focus on when it comes to all these coins. And that's kind of it. Again, like I said in the intro, I wanted today's stream to be a bit faster. I want it to be no malarkey. Okay. I'll say good evening to Mags though. Thank you for being here. I don't want any malarkey this stream. Okay, I just wanted to really give a quick update on all the things we talked about. Just keep it, like a train, just keep on going. So that's really what I think here. That's kind of what we have talking about. So the important part about this though is this probably won't happen. I said this last stream. This probably won't happen by the time I stream again, which will be Saturday time. We'll be recording a video tomorrow, so that'll be something to upload. But on Saturday, I will be streaming again to look at the charts. So we probably will be giving an update on what I've talked about today in the next stream and seeing how well it goes or how well it doesn't go. Obviously, not financial advice. Sometimes I get things wrong, sometimes I get things right. So it's bear that in mind. That's what everyone does. Again, people get things wrong, people get things right. So we'll see how it goes. I like Saturday. I'm very excited. I know we only just had Wednesday yesterday, but I'm very excited for next Wednesday because we should have Binance Square on the crypto quiz. Okay, I've been working on it the past couple of days, trying to really lock in on making it good. I know we had potentially one issue with Samurai, but I don't believe him. I'm not saying I don't believe him, but it's convenient that we had that snow. But maybe it's gone unnoticed. Maybe some of these lags have gone unnoticed, and maybe I'm the idiot. But I don't know. Apart from what Samurai potentially had an issue with, there was no hiccups, which was really nice to see from the update. So potentially including Binance Square next Wednesday, or I am going to be including Binance Square next Wednesday, which would be very nice to see. I'm very excited to include you guys, because some of you guys join along on Wednesdays and try and play, play along on the quiz. And you guys can't play obviously because it's not on Binance Square. But by hopefully next Wednesday and going forward in the future, you guys should be able to play, which I think would be very nice to have. But like I said, other than that, I know I've literally gone through this in 40 minutes. But those are the coins, and I could do some new tier on a new coin. But that's what I have. That's what I'm looking at. So I think that's it. I don't have any much more to say. It's very, very, very quiet. I don't know if we did something wrong on the YouTube stream. I don't know if it's like the notifications didn't go out or something, but it's very quiet on YouTube. Like nobody joined, which is fine. Obviously very quiet on Square. Not really much. People follow for follow. Whatever, you guys do your thing. But other than that, there wasn't really much. I don't really see anything. So I could stick around for maybe a minute or two in case someone wants a coin. And if you did send me a message earlier on asking for a coin and I missed it, apologies, I was busy doing the charts. If you want to resend the message if you're still here. But if I don't really see much, I will just end the stream. I'll just play the intro with some music for a while Mike does some red boxes on Square. And I guess I would see you guys on Saturday. Or see you in Telegram, obviously. But yeah, I'll stick around for an extra, minute. Drink some water and see if anyone says anything. If not, I can just, I'll see you guys on Saturday, like I said. I think it's done. I don't really see much going on. And I think Binance Square doesn't have any lag, so if anyone was here who actually did want a coin, you would have messaged by now. So that is it then. Thank you so much. I know I'm ending it early. What I'll do, I'm going to play some, I'm going to put it on the intro. I know I've ended way early, so Mike is still sending some boxes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the stream running on the intro screen with some music, some random music, while he sends out a packet. So other than that, thank you guys. Appreciate you being here. I'll see you in Telegram if I don't see you on next stream. I'll be back Saturday, obviously. Tomorrow I'm recording a video, so that might get uploaded tomorrow, potentially, or Saturday as well. So we'll see how that goes. So you'll see some of me on Friday as well. So see how this goes. That's it from me, I think. Yeah, pretty much. I don't have much else to say, so thank you, all of you. See you guys next stream. See you guys on Telegram. Thank you. Goodbye.